one.
All right. Dominique, how are you? It's a pleasure to have you. How is it going?
It's going great. Very nice to meet you.
Same here, same here. Dominic, you have a great project. I was able to watch a couple of the docu-series, so I'm hoping to finish them this week. But
Great.
before I spoil or anything, I'm going to give you the opportunity to please give us a little taste of what it is, and obviously for the people who don't know what this docu-series is about.
Yes, well, I'm excited to be executive producer of Golden, the journey of the U.S. elite gymnasts on the way to the 2021 Olympic Games in Tokyo. And I would be remiss in not mentioning that LeBron James and Maverick Carter are also other executive producers, and as well as another team of individuals. This has been a phenomenal project. I love that LeBron's company is all about athlete empowerment. And that's why I signed on board very early on, because I love the fact that Golden was going to follow the likes of 5 Olympic hopeful gymnasts on their way to Tokyo. And it was going to be completely transparent. They were going to open the doors, because a lot of my fans throughout my nearly 20-year career in the sport of gymnastics, spanning 3 different Olympic Games, they always saw us on top of the podium or at the Olympic Games, or maybe seeing a bit of the competition at Olympic trials, but no one knew what was going on behind the scenes, and the behind the scenes journey and the arduous toll it takes on these young girls to get a chance at making an Olympic team.
So for the people that are watching us right now, I just wanted to make sure that they know a little bit of your background. Obviously, Dominic, you were a 3-time Olympian, the first African-American woman to win an individual Olympic medal in an artistic gymnastics, and won a team gold as part of the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games with the Magnificent Seven. Now, when you were part of that group, were you aware of the history that you guys were creating? I mean, because I know, obviously you understood that winning that type of medals was not part of the repertoire of the Olympic team of the USA. Were you aware of what was going on with you?
I could feel, and I know my other 6 teammates felt the same way, we could feel the pressure. We knew the expectations were that we were to make history and we were to win gold in Atlanta, Georgia in 1996. We definitely had the talent. However, you have to have a little bit of luck play in your court. And being in the US, it had its pros and cons. Having the hometown advantage was an advantage, but then there was also that enormous amount of pressure that all of us felt. And so, it definitely took a toll on us each and every day in practice, but we were able to step up when it mattered, and we made history. And making the Americans so dominant back then, 25 years ago, that is insane to think, really started the trend of the sport of gymnastics becoming super popular in the United States. And now they've been winning since 2016. 2012, actually, I believe they won with Gabby winning the all around as well. And in 2016, and I can guarantee you they're going to win in 2021 as well.
Where can people can see this docuseries, and what do you expect from them to learn from this?
What I want them to learn from it is, number one, we're not covering Simone, because everyone knows Simone is a lock. As long as she is healthy, and she looks like she's fairly healthy. Yeah. As long as she's healthy, she's a lock for this Olympic team. But what I want is, there are a number of other spots, and there's a number of other girls that are vying for those spots. And we want you to get to know who these girls are and know who they are as people, not just as Olympic hopefuls. And so you see the behind the scenes, the training and the physical toll and emotional toll it takes on the girls, but you see the relationships they have at home. We have one athlete, Suni Lee, who's phenomenal. Her dad went through a very tragic accident, who is now paralyzed. And, she's kind of stepping up at home and helping out with mom and dad and her sibling. Also, we have Michaela Skinner, who just fell short of making the prior Olympic team in Rio, the 2016 Olympics. And she went off to have an amazing career at the University of Utah as a gymnast, and decided, hey, I want to come back. And now she's got a husband even, that's her support system. So, that's just 2 of the 5 athletes that we're covering. And it's good to see their journey, that, they're talking about the anxiety, they're talking about the fear, they're talking about the toll. And you see the relationships that they have with their families and friends as well. And they go on to training camps, they go on to competitions, and we cover all of that.
So Dominique, 2020 was a year that took a turn, I would say, for humanity in a lot of aspects, and not only on for COVID, but also for what sparked the social injustice conversation, the police violence, racial discrimination, and other conversations. Was this project also inspired by that? Because since you mentioned LeBron James, and he was one of the most outspoken, and still is one of the most outspoken figures during this whole process. So was this inspired by that?
You would have to talk to the producers, JP and Harrison, a little bit more about that. I think this was really their brainchild. But when they presented me with this opportunity, knowing that Spring Hill was on board and it's with Uninterrupted, I love the fact that LeBron's company is all about athlete empowerment. And I started my own gymnastics gym, the Dominique Dawes Gymnastics Academy, a year ago. And what sparked me to open my own gymnastics gym, I'm now 44 years old and a mother of 4, was because of the need for the change in the sport of gymnastics. There's a very unhealthy culture in the sport of gymnastics that the light was shined on it in 2016 with regards to the Larry Nassar sexual abuse scandal, with hundreds of young survivors that have spoken out and they feel powerful to use their voice. And this is my way of using my voice to change and spark change in the sport of gymnastics. The culture is something that a lot of people are not privy to if you are outside of our bubble. And now that I believe Golden has kind of let fans into the bubble to see the level of intensity, the level of pressure, the level of anxiety, you won't believe now, even as a 44-year-old woman, I was watching the docuseries and it took me back to being a young child and feeling that sense of lack of control, that fear, that silence that these young girls are feeling. I'm not saying their coaches are that way, but much of the culture of the sport is that way. And that's what I loved about this project, that it was going to be transparent. And I want moms and dads and guardians that watch this to see, hey, is this something that I want for my daughter? Because we're mainly just following women's gymnastics. Is this something that I want for my daughter? And I think it's important for the sport to have that change.
And I'm glad that you actually mentioned that, because for me, the standards of the Olympics, it's also the cause for the obsession to achieve that perfection, and therefore created that pressure not only on the athletes but on the teams, on the country itself. I mean, could you say that that's probably the way that it starts, the whole problem?
Well, back in the day when I was in the sport, I was born in 1976. In 76, you think of Nadia Comaneci, the perfect 10.
Yeah.
And when she was able to achieve that, that is something that then every little young gymnast that walked into a gymnastics gym, they knew about, and they would strive for that perfect 10. And it really created or even drew in those that were perfectionists. It creates that mentality that nothing is ever good enough, that you strive to work on always bettering yourself, or you look at your imperfections and your flaws and you're obsessing over becoming perfect. I will attest to saying I have never been perfect and I will never be perfect. And that's one part that I watched early on in this docuseries. One of the young athletes talks about that. I think it was Suni Lee who was talking about you only have one chance to be perfect. Like, just think about that as a young person, the amount of pressure that she feels, as well as these other young girls feel. However, what I love about a Michaela Skinner, who's 24 years old, mind you, that's amazing, like a Simone, competing, this one in her first Olympic Games for Michaela, second Olympic Games for Simone. I love Michaela Skinner. She has a better perspective on things. She's like, I'm a grown adult now. I can use my voice. I have an opinion. My opinion matters. And when you're young, when you're a teenager, when you're very young in this culture, you learn to not trust your feelings. You learn to not trust your mind. You just shut it off and you're kind of being told what to do and how to do things, and you're striving for that perfection. And it leads to a very unhealthy sense of self. And you do see that in this docuseries, though it is very positive. It is a very positive docuseries where I love the fact that these girls seem to be friends, that they're laughing, that they stay in touch. And, you know, even one scene, I saw a young athlete like smiling and joking with their coach. That's phenomenal to see, and we need to see that more.
I remember seeing, and I think I was traumatized by it. I remember seeing many years ago this video of an Asian country in which they were literally torturing
Oh,
the gymnastics girls, and they were so young, and they put their legs somewhere, I don't know, they were just sitting up with their legs up, and then they were pressing on their knees and their legs, I mean, to gain, I don't know, some sort of elasticity to their legs. I don't know what it was, but
not just happening, it's not just happening in Asian countries. That's what I went through as a gymnast for my 18 years in my sport. And that was acceptable. That is very
wow.
acceptable. And that's something that, again, why I wanted to be a part of this project, because I want things different it's a beautiful sport. It's a beautiful sport. It's a sport that I'm very passionate about. And I want kids to have a healthy experience in the sport. I don't want them walking in fearful of what they're going to go through physically or emotionally or verbally and how it's going to impact them. And that's what I want people, mainly parents, because we have control over our kids. We have control over who's going to impact and influence our kids. And if my kid's going to walk into a facility with her head down and she's sheepishly walking in, or she's crying as she's in the gym facility, or crying when she's leaving out, or even one of my staff members and I were talking the other day, and she was saying how she used to hyperventilate in the bathroom before practice each and every day, and her mom would have to encourage her to get out and go train. If my children, any of my 4 children, are hyperventilating before they go to train and practice, and this is an ongoing occurrence, it's not the sport for them. It's not the environment for them. And it's, again, not the sport, it's that environment. And at my facility, and not to be plugging my gym here, but at my facility, we are all about empowerment, encouragement, and a healthy environment. It's not about getting kids on top of an Olympic podium. It's more about developing a happier and healthy version of each and every kid that walks through our doors. And so what you saw is very much what I think built champions in 1996 that I was a part of. However, it does take a toll on these young girls. It does take a toll on them, even as women. And I would love to be a part of that healthy change for the sport that I love.
And I'm glad that you also mentioned your gym, because I was going to ask you about it. Now, yes, you do have the foundation, you have the idea of change and everything, but how do you re-educate those coaches that already come with that idea that it has to be a rough way, it has to be this tough way, you know? So
Dad, you know how you do it? You don't hire those coaches.
For that.
You don't hire the coaches. You don't hire those coaches. You hire coaches that truly love working with kids, and they recognize that their words and their actions leave a lifelong impact on every single kid that walks through those doors. And I have not had an issue with any coach wanting to threaten a kid, yell at a kid, physically harm a kid, because I do not hire them. I hire people that are good, happy, whole people. Will people slip through the cracks and interview well and seem as if they're a part of my philosophy and values? I'm sure that'll happen, but they will be quickly let go, because I have 4 of my own kids in this gym. I love them dearly, and I love every single one of the other kids in my gym as well. And I care about how they're going to be developed and how their esteem is going to be impacted in this facility. So the way that you do it is you don't bring that old school mentality that built Olympic champions. You get rid of that old school mentality and you bring in new, fresh blood that recognize that they're role models and their words and actions matter and make a difference.
I know we're pressing on time right now. I have 2 last questions for you. Obviously, 2018 was also when the world was shaking with the news of Dr. Nassar and the allegations brought against him. You knew him well, but not really, because since this was happening, you were about 48 hours away from giving birth. And I saw these tweets that you posted. I mean, what went through your mind and going through labor and the hormones and the situation? I have 3 kids, so I know.
Okay.
I know about the hormones. So can you describe the feelings that you went through and how everything was probably all over the place in your head?
It was beyond more clear than it's ever been in my life. Now, when 2016 happened and it broke with regards to the news of Larry Nassar, I was like everyone else that knew him, and I knew him for 10 years of my childhood. I was in complete disbelief. Why? Because he was a friend. He was our Olympic team doctor and then some. I remember him being next to me. I believe it was the 1992 Olympic trials in Baltimore when I was going through severe tendonitis, and him coming up with this unique ankle wrap thing. And I was like, oh, you made it possible. Or 1996 when he was there for Carrie Strug, or at the 2000 Olympic Games when I finished my career, he was there in the house with us even to help provide treatment, which clearly, you know, he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. So when everything was happening, it's crazy, you know, that was right around the time when I was birthing my twins. So it was like double the hormones, just craziness. You know, the light went on during that process of everything with Larry, that I knew that I needed to be a part of this healthy change that needed to be made in the sport of gymnastics. I love the sport too much. And I always say this, it's not the sport, it's the people in the sport that need to change. Now, are there healthy people? Yes, there are so many great healthy coaches out there. I don't hear their voices enough. I don't know if they're not out, they just need to be a little bit more outspoken. There are a lot of healthy coaches out there. However, there also are a lot of healthy coaches out there that witnessed this abuse and they thought it was okay, or they turned a blind eye and they thought that's just the way it is in the sport of gymnastics. No, it's not. We care about each and every kid. And these abuses have lifelong impacts on each and every one of these young people. There are hundreds of survivors. They're going to be going through this process for the rest of their lives. It is not Larry's got life in prison and it's over for them and they can be like, oh, I'm all healed now, I'm great. No, this is something that they're going to have to grapple with in therapy and so much more for the rest of their lives. And so it's up to us, those that want to be a part of that healthy change, to be outspoken, to do what we can. And the little thing that I'm doing right now is being a part of this amazing documentary, Golden, and it being so transparent, and for people to make decisions for themselves based off of what they see in this documentary. Nothing is sugar-coated, nothing is overly edited. I love that about this documentary, that moms and dads and other coaches can say, hey, I don't like this about the sport. Let me be a part of that change. And that's what I'm also doing at my gymnastics academy here in Maryland.
And last one, COVID obviously has changed the dynamics of the sports in general. And this year's Olympics is not going to be any different. No fans will be allowed in. How much of an impact do you think this will have on the athletes?
Well, this will be the most watched Olympic Games ever, because of what you just stated. There's not going to be any fans in the stands. So many people are going to be home, gathered, and really praying and cheering on these athletes. And I hope they hear our adulation for them many miles away. I couldn't imagine being an athlete and the stands being somewhat empty, because I always think about my Olympic career and I think about the Georgia Dome being sold out with nearly 50,000 people, because we had half of the Georgia Dome and basketball had the other half, and just the stands and everything and the podiums vibrating when people were cheering and chanting "Go USA." And so that is going to be a loss for these athletes. However, every single person is going to be cheering for the Olympic Games across the globe. And I think the world needs this to come together to unite so that we can heal.
And thank you so much, Dominique. If you can send an invitation just for people to not miss this this docuseries and where they can also watch it.
Yes, please check out Golden. This is an amazing docuseries that I'm the executive producer of, along with LeBron James and Maverick Carter, and you can check it out on Peacock.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for those of you watching, don't forget that you can also follow me on all my social media at Jadel Reda and also at LA Times en Español. Thank you, Dominic. Take care. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.